Aloha kako. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for BYU Education Week and another portion of this Mahalo series, Unpacking Hawaiian Values. We're really excited to kind of share this with you a little bit more, and today we want to dive in a little deeper and talk about the true meaning of Ohana. So I remember when I was younger, I want to say probably 8 or 9 years old, we went to Kauai like how we do every year. So I was born and raised in Kaneohe on the island of Oahu. And my mom's family was from the island of Kauai, right there in Kapa'a. So this is our family home at the top of, Kapa'a looking down. And this is where we had this pa'ina, this big luau. And I remember going there and it was just loaded. Just so many people. And it's normal, right? But I remember at this age, it was a little overwhelming just seeing so many aunties and uncles and cousins. Now, it was fun with the cousins part, right? Because it's always good when you're out there able to just go and run around, be rambunctious and play. But it was just, if you've ever been in Hawaii, you see auntie, you got to go and kiss auntie. You see uncle, you got to go give uncle, a hug and everything. And it's not just this, high five or, peace out. Whatever. It really is an involved process because your mom and your dad want to make sure that the family, the Ohana, sees you and their children and all of the keiki and be able to catch up. So it was just long. And it was a really nice time. But I remember a couple of days later, we ended up going to the family cemetery just to go and bring some flowers and to reconnect with our ancestors and allow my mom to talk story with her grandma and her pupu and all this stuff. And we were sitting there and then I asked my Mom, who at that party is our real family? And my mom just kind of smiled. And she starts looking around. She grabs the flowers. She smells the flowers. She looks up at the trees. She looks out to the ocean. And then she looks at me and she goes, "Boy, traditionally, we're all family. Our ohana includes the trees, the ocean, the rocks, the flowers, the animals, right? It's everything in the universe. That's ohana. The people and nature are siblings, born to the same parents at the beginning of time. We are Kekioka'aina, or the children of the land." And I remember when she said all of this, I was kind of overwhelmed. I mean, I was 8, 9 years old. But it helped me really to understand that it doesn't matter where we're from or what our particular heritage or cultural background was, because I can tell you some of these people didn't look like me. And I don't mean that in a good way or a bad way. It just, I would have never guessed that that the person that I was calling auntie or uncle was my actual auntie or uncle. It's this universal understanding that everyone and everything in the universe is family to us. And therefore it establishes how we can engage, how we can interact with one another and find that connection between us. So what is ohana, right? Now, the dictionary definition everybody knows, ohana means family. And according to our cousin Lilo from Disney, ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. And that was kind of a cool statement, right? Because that's a true statement for many of us, because we all go our different ways, right? But as family, that's the rock. That's the place you can come back to. Those are your people. So this right here, this is my ohana. And this is a small portion of my ohana. This was at a more recent wedding about 5 or 6 years ago. And we had people from Hawaii, people from California, people from Utah. We had them all over the place, right? When it comes to ohana in Hawaii, it's very often hard to tell who is actually related by blood and what the relationships are. And to be blunt, in Hawaii, it doesn't really matter, right? In the older generational families, right, they had many siblings. So they were really large. So, for instance, my mom is one of 10, 5 girls, 5 boys. My dad, with his stepsisters and brothers, I think he's one of 12. And above that, my grandma is one of 26 natural siblings. They also had 6 hanai as well. So, you talk about these big families, and the reason why that's interesting to think about is because your parents, you've got older cousins that are your parents' age, but they're still addressed respectfully as auntie and uncle, even though they're technically your cousins, right? So, we see that friends of our parents are also referred to as auntie and uncle. We've got the parents of our friends are referred to as auntie and uncle. So we've got all of these different dynamics, right, that helps create this family that we have. And as a child, it can be a curse or a blessing to have so many ohana, to have so many aunties or uncles, right? The curse is if you're out doing something you're not supposed to do and somebody sees you, uncle would look at you and say, does your dad know that you're here? But on the flip side, if you ever get a flat tire, more than likely there's probably going to be an uncle over there that can help you. If you go to the beach and you forgot your lunch, more than likely probably going to have an auntie someplace that can say, come over here, come baby, we get food, come eat, right? So you're always going to have family there to make sure that you're okay. So again, a blessing and a curse. But I think more of us start to understand the blessing of it all, right? Growing up in Hawaii, the idea of family, of ohana, is crucial, right? When people meet for the first time, it's interesting because till this day it still happens. Even though I live in California now, when I talk to people back in Hawaii, let's say for the first time, they run you through the traditional questions. And if anybody's lived in Hawaii for quite some time, those questions are simple. Who's your mother? Who's your father? What school you went? Right? I mean, it's it, right? Now, the funny thing is what school you went is specifically referring to what high school you went to. Why? Because we're always trying to find that connection. Who's your mom? I may know her family. Who's your dad? Is there anybody in your dad's family that I know? What high school did you go to? Because if you went to that school, I may know somebody else that went to that school around the same time. Do you know them? Why? Because we're trying to find that connection. We're trying to figure out how it is that you and I can be connected. Why? So we can continue to tighten that relationship. So when we look at ohana, right, we look at the spirit of family. We look at the spirit of collaboration and community. And in its meaning, right, when we dive into the kauna, right, when in its meaning, it really says that we're working together to feed one another, because in the word ohana, we have hana. Hana means to work or to labor, right? A term that they utilize in Hawaii is pauhana Fridays, right? Why? Pau means finish. Hana means work. Friday is usually the last day of the work week. So there's always a Pauhana Friday party going on, or something to go and spend time with the family, whether it be at somebody's house or whatnot. That's Hana, right? Next we have Oha, okay? This right here is a little bit different, but it's important. It's really important because Oha comes from the shoots of the corm of the kalo plant, right? And so for those that don't know, it's like you've got poi, right? The thing that tastes like paste, right? You guys keep believing that it tastes like paste because it's definitely a good thing for you to keep giving it to me, right? So you got the poi, which is made from the taro or kalo plant that is basically a root in the ground, okay? So the kalo plant that's what this oha is, right? It's the root that basically signifies that it just keeps coming back up. Now, the thing that's interesting is when you plant, and as Native Hawaiians, we believe that's where we are descended from, is from this kalo plant. Now, this is the interesting part. If you've ever been able to go and pick kalo, you take it, it's in this big kalo field, and it's got water in it because it's wetland taro. So you go and scoop it out of the mud and you pull it out, and then you break the top off. And you take the top and you put it right back in the ground. Now you've got your kalo that you can now go make, kulolo, poi, whatever that is that pa'iai, whatever. But that root that you put back into the ground, it grows another kalo. Our future generation. That's what Oha talks about. But the interesting part is for some of us that really understand this idea of kalo, I took my children to go and pick kalo one day. And as they're picking in our family lo'i, in our family taro field, as they're picking it and they're planting it again, the thought process comes into their mind. How long have you guys been planting this same root over and over again? Did my grandparents plant this same root? Did their parents plant this same root? Some of these kalo has been planted for generations. Can you imagine the connectivity that you have? By farming, by tilling, by caring for the land, knowing that this same kalo plant that you harvested, that took care of you, that gave you sustenance, is the same plant that was planted and cared for by your ancestors. That's the beauty of Oha, right? So next we have Ha, right? We talked about this. We learned about this on Aloha and in Mahalo. This is breath. This is essence. This is life. This is everything that we are, right? This is the divinity that is us. And then next we have Anna, right? Anna means to be satisfied, right? So if you go to Auntie's house and you eat, and let me digress a little bit, when you go to my mom's house, one of the first things that she asks, before she even asks how you are doing, one of the first things she asks is this. You hungry? Boy, you hungry? You cannot say no. If you say no, then she's going to be like, why? You don't like my food? Huh? You don't like my cooking? So you're going to have to eat. And when you eat, a couple hours later, boy, you hungry? Pia, you good? You good? Ma'ana. Ma'ana. That means I am full. I am very much satisfied. I'm okay. So this ability for us to take care of one another by making sure that we are fed, to making sure that we are full and satisfied, that is part of it, right? So when we look at Ohana, right, we see the foundation, we see the... Let me tell it to you the right way. Because when you start to understand Ohana in this way, it really makes you think about family. In the word Ohana, you see the foundation, O, of life, Ha, of the next generation, Oha, that is perpetuated in labor, Hana, which is demonstrative of how you feed one another, which is Anna. And all of this is to demonstrate, to teach, to show. For what? Na, the future. Beautiful, isn't it? That's Ohana. No. We also acknowledge, this is my ohana. This is not our kalo field. This was actually a service that we wanted to do whenever we have family come and visit us. One of the first things I do is make sure that my children and all of their cousins go out and do service. So this was kind of them being able to get into nature, get into the land and do all this stuff. So we went and picked some food for people that needed it, right? But this helps connect our ohana because we acknowledge that in order for life, for ha, to thrive in a family, we must hana, we must work together. Without it, we're left with o, nothing, right? So this starts to bring us into a different chapter of ohana, and that is hanai. Okay, so hanai, the term hanai is what we use in the Hawaiian culture to refer to this informal adoption of a person by somebody else, right? You have the traditional adoption, but in Hawaii, I don't need to go through the process. Hanai is being able to just take in a child or a person and call them your own, make them a part of your family. So from kings to farmers, from ancient history into present day, hanai really has been not just a way for a childless couple to have this ohana and raise children, but it's also been a way to kind of allow a family to shift its borders. So what I mean by that is, historically, hanai was used for political purposes. And this was used to kind of link ruling families. And I think perhaps the most famous example of hanai was Hawaii's last reigning monarch, our beloved Queen Liliuokalani, right? She actually was a hanai child, and she was a child of chiefs that were higher ranking than her biological parents. And in her autobiography, Hawaii's Story by Hawaii's Queen, what she wrote about hanai was this, quote, "It seems perfectly natural to us. This alliance by adoption cemented the ties of friendship between the chiefs. It spread to the common people, and it has doubtless fostered community of interest and harmony." So as a strategy, hanai had an advantage over alliances forged by marriage, right? Because, again, when we think about royalty and all this stuff, there's a lot of this marriages that happen to try to bring these families together. But when you think about it, right, while it's still not uncommon to have conflict within this parent-in-law situation, people are less likely to wage war against their own parents, whether it be biological or adoptive. So when you think about it, it's pretty smart. It's interesting. But it kind of goes a little bit further beyond that, because now we're just, many of us may be thinking, well, that's not for me. I wouldn't do that. I couldn't do that. I don't need to do that. I don't have royalty. I'm not trying to wage wars and change the borders of our family opportunities, right? But let's go back to think about, how does this affect us as commoners? And that's what we look towards, right? As if you weren't royalty, if you weren't part of the royal family, you were considered maka'aina na, right? And again, if you think about it, in there you've got, keiki o ka aina, aina the land, maka'aina na. Maka is I, aina is the land, and the ana, right, is the sustenance, is being able to make it piha, make it full, right? And so the idea of maka'aina na as a commoner, the kauna of this word is the eyes of the land, the keepers of the land, the people that watch out to make sure that the land is cared for, right? So that's what the commoners were called, is maka'aina na. Okay? And there was a time where not just the royal families owned everything. There was eventually this time where they would start to disseminate these lands. But they didn't just do what we do now, which is, okay, you got this sliver of land, you got this plot over here. What they did was, in Hawaii, they actually gave you what is known as an ahupua'a. Okay? So what they did was this ahupua'a consisted of lands that went from the mountain all the way down to the ocean. Okay? And it consisted of this local, this mountain up on the top, and it usually kind of bordered these streams, okay? And it went from stream to stream, and then what happened was, you've got up on the mountaintops, you've got this, upland, this area that was cultivated and forested. And then now you got the lowland, and this was more for the farming. And then you continue all the way out into the ocean, where you could fish and you could get all of those things. And it's really interesting why they did that, rather than just doing this bottom portion and top portion, everybody. If you think about it, they actually went from stream to stream. And they did this division for two reasons. Number one, they made it easier to travel, right? To be able to travel from top down and up and back, rather than from stream to another stream to another stream. You stayed within that area. The other thing is the economy, right? They wanted to make sure that these, you had these climate zones and these economic zones within your ahupua'a that allowed you to care for your family, right? It allowed you to be self-sufficient, because you had the forest that could give you the things that you needed to build, and to build canoes, to build homes, to build all the tools that you needed. You had the farming area to be able to give you the substance from the land. And then you also had the ocean, which gave you all of the, all of the fish and all of the things that came from the ocean. Okay, so again, in order for life, that ha, to thrive in this family, we all needed to work together. We needed to bring this work together. So this sense of extended family in Hawaii was huge because of this ohana, right? This idea of ohana. Together we work to create this love and this life that we need. Now, the idea behind this ahupua'a and this hanai is that if so say they would give it to our ohana. The king gave us this entire ahupua'a, and we have ahupua'a on Kauai and on Oahu that our family has. And it was from the mountain all the way down to the ocean. And the things that was interesting when it comes to hanai is that, let's say, that's our piece of land. So I'm not the fisherman. Let's say I'm the farmer. But my brother, he's going to go down and he's going to take care of all the fishing and everything. And then we exchange, right? Our other family, they're over there making sure that they've got all of the forestry and all the things done. So everybody has their place within here, okay? But this is where hanai comes in. I may have 10 children, and that's plenty. That's plenty for us to do. But my brother, who is the fisherman, he may only have 2 children. So you know what, brother? I will give you 3 of my children. 3 of my children are now yours. Yours to raise, yours to help you to be able to do what you need to support not only your family, but all of our ohana. Okay? So it wasn't just, oh, I don't have children, can you give me children? Or, oh, I got too much children, can you take some children because I need help? It wasn't for that purpose only. It was this idea of our family needed to work together. Our family is connected. Just because we gave birth to this child doesn't mean that it's exclusive. I can share all of us. We are all connected. So when we start to understand this interconnectivity, not only within the ohana, but even from other families. You know what? Let me do this. It happens all over. Till this day, hanai is part of the Hawaiian culture. It happens more often than not. You do not need to officially adopt a child in a Hawaiian's eye for that to be my child. I have countless cousins that have been hanai'd by aunties and uncles that I did not know was not their biological child. Can you imagine how beautiful that must be? Some people look at that and say, oh, that's so sad, that's so sad. Really, you talk to them. You talk to them. Because they are loved as if they are part of that ohana. So, you see, kind of what we talked about before, when you run into people in Hawaii, right? They always ask, who's your mother? Who's your father? Where's your family from? Right? They talk about these ideas of where the family is. And it's kind of cute because I remember going out, me and my brothers, we played a lot of sports. And because of that, you're always interacting with people. We're on the field, we're on the courts, and we're doing our thing. But where's our parents? Everybody's parents is all up in the stands. And because they're all cheering for each other and your kids play with my kids, all the parents inevitably get together and they talk story. Right? And they start to find those connections. Why? Because my child is playing with your child. You know, why shouldn't, if they're friends or if they're teammates and we're trying to beat the other people, maybe we should be, friends and have this connection so that we can cheer our children on to try to beat the other team or encourage or whatever that is, right? So it's this whole idea of there. But sometimes as a child in Hawaii, you get embarrassed because it almost sounds like an interrogation. Your parents are sitting there immediately, the moment your friend's family comes around, who's your family, where are you from, all of these things. And the connections that are trying to be made that will eventually be made and fostered for a long time. The things that embarrassed us as children now become a part of us. We now become our parents. So the same way that our parents used to find those connections, who is your ohana? Who are you connected to? It brings us into this full circle. Because of this day and age, genealogy has become a big part of who we are. For a lot of people, genealogy is really helping them to make connections, right? I mean, we see a lot of these DNA kits and everything, and they're connecting. They're making connections maybe you kind of wish you didn't know about. But just think about that. They didn't have that. They didn't have that, right? So the tools and resources, the technologies available to us to be able to find and make those connections, these social media aspects. Now, social media can be a blessing and a curse. But the blessing is we can make connections. I know people that have connections so strong with people they've never met before face to face. Is that you? Do you have those types of connections? Is that a blessing or a curse? I think it's a blessing to be able to have these friends that are located halfway across the world, to be able to engage and have these nice conversations about the things that make us happy, right? Genealogy allows us to connect. So I got to tell you this story. While here at BYU Education Week, we're over there going to classes and whatnot. And this happened to me the other day. We were sitting in a class, and in between the two classes, we turned around and we started talking story with the people behind us. And we were just having a nice conversation with these two ladies. And we found out that they were from here, both of them, and they were friends for quite some time. And I don't know why, but I don't know why I didn't catch this before, but I looked down at her name tag, and she had the exact same last name as me. And I looked at her, I was like, "Excuse me, Auntie, is your last name Perkins?" She goes, "Yes." And I pulled out my badge, and I said, "We must be related." And she just started laughing, and she goes, and then next thing you know, and she didn't mean this in a negative way, but she starts kind of backpedaling, like, "Oh no, we're this, or we're that, we're this," like she's trying to basically make it seem okay that we're probably not going to be related because I'm Hawaiian and I've got more color in my skin. She was Caucasian. You could tell from a very visible scenario that we don't look like we're related except our name badges, right? So she's trying to be okay, make sure that there's no insult that we're not really connected. And I don't care. I'm just having fun with this. So my wife, just being who she is so smart. She just goes, "This is awesome. We should find out. Let's pull out the family search app and find our relatives." So again, technology, right? Now we have the technology and the capabilities to pull up an app, click on relatives near me, and it starts to search and ping around to other people who have this app open to look to see if there is a familial connection between you and this other person. Now, she was Caucasian, even though so let me back up. I am Hawaiian, but I'm only a little over 50% Hawaiian. I am Hawaiian, Chinese, Japanese, English, Irish, Portuguese. In Hawaii, we call it chop suey. I think you guys call that mat. That's who I am, right? I am all of this. I am the melting pot, okay? But you can tell, like I said, this very physical features that was represented between myself and this lady were not related. Lo and behold, technology says we are. And we were ninth cousins. And she could not believe it. At first, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't." And the next thing you know, she started to tear. She had found that connection. We were having a nice time talking before. It was really nice because I actually invited her to my class before I find out that she was my auntie. But after we found out that that connection was there, it took our conversation to a whole different level. Now, that wasn't the only thing that happened during that meeting. My wife said, "Let's see your friend." And her friend pulls it up, and they are fifth cousins. They literally, these two ladies that are older than me, let's just say that, were literally giving each other high fives. They've been friends for so long. The fact that they were able to see that they were related, fifth cousins. They've been friends forever. That didn't change their relationship. But it did. But it did. Can you imagine? Can you imagine when we go, these two ladies were friends for such a long time. I mean, they're coming to Education Week, just the two of them. And then to watch their relationship change in a split second when the app says you two are now connected in real life as family. That's the power of Ohana. That's the power of family. To be able to bring together all of these different things and connect us in the way that we have a deep yearning for. But it takes work. I can tell you, those two ladies weren't always best friends, and life wasn't always perfect for them, individually and collectively. There was a lot of work that got them to that point. I know for me, some of my relationships, my friends, it doesn't just go smooth all the time. There's bumps in the road. There's work. There's hana that needs to be done. There's oha. Our children are connected, oha, the same way that we were connected. That had to take work. Our families are connected. We feed one another. We're constantly bringing our families together, and we're feeding them not just in sustenance, in food, but in stories, in experiences, in learnings, in values, in disciplines, in all these different things, right? That's what Ohana is. So as we look towards, this idea that we are all interconnected, that once we find that connection, it takes us to this different level, then How do we bring it to pass? What's the action item in this? So we have the Ohana challenge. So within this Ohana challenge, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but nowadays you can buy these journals and these books in which you can interview your father, your grandfather, your mom, your grandmother, different people and whatnot. And we've done it. We love it. Some of the things that we also do is not only do we sit there and write it down in these journals, but what we do is we actually set up a camera. So if you guys get together at a family reunion, and it doesn't even have to be a family reunion. We've done it where we just got together as family, right? But we made a deliberate decision to set up a camera or even your phone to record someone in our family. And we put them on the hot seat. We have them sit down and we just sat there and here's all the questions. It's one thing to be in the hot seat, but when you're in the hot seat with your family, and you have your children asking questions, your grandchildren asking questions, all the aunties and uncles asking questions. I can tell you this exercise is probably one of the most fun exercises that my children get to enjoy when they're with their ohana. And it's not just about Papa and Pupu. Grandma and Grandpa aren't the only ones that are interviewed. Sometimes we'll sit there and say, okay, Uncle, it's your turn. We want to hear about it. Who was your first girlfriend? Who's the first girl you ever kissed? What kind of sports did you play? What about this? We want that connection. We want to be able to know, why is it that I'm so good at this sport? Because my dad is not good at that sport. My dad never played that sport. Well, guess what? Your grandpa did. And your grandpa was state champion. Really? It gives you identity. It helps you to start to connect with who you are. So the Ohana challenge in this scenario is find ways to don't just write this stuff down or don't just bring it together and just ask questions and let it go because it's gone. What we want to do is we want to document it. We want to memorialize this. Why? About 7 years ago, I was doing family genealogy and family history stuff. And I was looking on the app and we were filling in the different things and doing the work. And I saw that my papa, my great-grandfather on my mom's side, one of my cousins uploaded a recording of an interview between he and a member of BYU Hawaii. I was 3 when my papa died. I didn't have an opportunity to speak with him, to hear his voice. I knew who he was because of the stories and the pictures. But for the first time, I actually got to hear his voice. And I heard my papa speaking. My holelo no eao. My ability to speak Hawaiian is li'i. It's small. My parents, they don't speak Hawaiian. There was a time in our island's history that it was illegal to speak our language. My grandparents spoke very little Hawaiian. And it was carried over from the time that their parents were able to speak it. But I got to hear my papa speak. And this conversation between this man and my papa, it was all in Hawaiian. Every word of that was in Hawaiian except for the names that were not. And he talked about his family. He talked about life on the islands. Talked about life in Kauai. What he did as a job. You could hear the respect that he had for his ohana and for his bride. My pupu. He loved her. He loved his family. They asked him about his religion. I am a convert to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was 29 years old. I thought I was the first and only. And then I heard my papa say, this man asked him if he knew Christ. And my papa testified of Christ. And he had said that all of his children were baptized as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 26 of his children. My mom was raised outside of the church, but she was baptized as a member of this church. The connections that we can make will live on long after we're gone. So, my challenge to you, talk to your ohana. Ask them the questions. Have fun. But document it. Record it. Allow the future generations, the posterity that you have in front of you, to be able to have that gift of ohana in the past as they look towards the future. Use this as an opportunity to expand your ohana. Call on them. It is a very special place, this land that we live in, Hawaii. As a people, we have learned to connect. We have learned to reach out, accept, and have aloha, the love, in our hearts for every single person. It's mandated, not just by our ohana, our family, but because of the law, the Hawaii Spirit law. As a people, it's our responsibility, our kuleana, to have love, to have gratitude, mahalo, to recognize the divine breath in each and every one of us. In Hawaii, you don't have to be related by blood to be considered ohana. We are connected to one another in many ways. Whether bond is by blood or by aloha, it matters not. We are all ohana.